my 2024 update on my self-publishing journey. Hello, I'm Gertrude Nontra, and I have a full-time job working in the biotech industry, but I also self-publish both fiction and non-fiction books. And a lot of you that have subscribed to this channel this past year have done so because maybe you've watched my video on 7 platforms where to sell your books, or you've watched my audiobook video. Thank you all for watching these videos. I know there have been so many questions sometimes on some of those videos. I'm going to answer some of those in this video, but I'm also going to give you an update of my journey as a self-published author. So I'm happy to say that in 2024, I did write and self-publish 3 fiction pieces. They were all around 40,000 words. That's considered a short novel. And I published them under a pen name. Prior to that, I also had 7 published books that I published in 2022 and 2023 across that time period. So right now I have 10 self-published romance books. And as far as nonfiction goes, I have a few that I had published a long time ago. Those don't even sell much anymore. But there's one book I wrote on freelance writing under my own name that has been selling fairly decently this year. I haven't promoted it much at all, so I've been very delighted to see the sales that have come in. Now, like I was saying, this is not my full-time job. I do have a full-time job. I'm also a full-time mom and wife and sister and auntie, so I have a lot of responsibilities, right? But I started self-publishing romance really as a passion project, but also to create what's known as an income-producing asset. So towards the end of 2023, I was really trying to set myself up well for 2024. Once I hit 40, I don't know, I'm 41 this year. God willing, next year I'll be 42. And once I hit 40, right, life definitely begins to come into perspective for you. And I began to think of ways in which I could increase my income, set myself up financially better. And I know you're watching this video like, okay, I came here for self-publishing and this woman is talking about money, but it all plays into everything I'm going to share with you today. So be patient with me, okay? It was important for me to start creating income producing assets because both me and my husband have jobs, we work, and most of that money goes to bills and to the regular life that we live, right? But in addition to that, I wanted to create something that would generate income for me every single day. Now, I know that there's a lot of misinformation around self-publishing and selling things like books and courses and digital products online. And a lot of the time, the dream that is sold is you're going to create these things, they're going to sit passively on some website somewhere, maybe on Amazon, and you're going to sell them passively and you're going to make $1 million, right? And having been a self-published fiction author for the last 3 years, and before that a bit of nonfiction, I would say that unless you have one of these 4 things, right, you're not going to make bucket loads of money from writing books, okay? So the number 1 thing you may need to have in order to succeed as a self-published author is a huge mailing list, a huge email list of hungry readers, not just an email list that you go by. This is an email list of people that are interested in your genre, interested in the types of books you write, and are ready to pounce the moment you publish a book. Most of the people that do very well in this space, a lot of them have large email lists. A second thing I've noticed about people that really do well in self-publishing is that they run a lot of ads. And this year, I personally enrolled in courses to help me learn, and they were not cheap. Trust me, they were not cheap. To help me learn ads, okay? And one of the things I learned, and I started, putting what I had learned into practice. One of the things I learned from these courses is that ads are not a sure thing either. You have to test your ads. You have to find the ones that convert better. You have to write the right copy. There's so many pieces. Even just changing a picture, right? The picture that you're using in your ad, that alone, just changing the first line, changing the last line, changing a word can have such a profound effect on your ad. And so the people that do very well with self-publishing, a lot of them are running ads that they have tested and spent money. It's not free, by the way. Spent money to test, and they have picked the best ones, and those ones keep on converting for them. And I had like 2 or 3 ads for me that were doing quite well on Facebook, and let me tell you, the money goes like this. But it was nice to see that uptick in sales once those ads started working. But if you hear anybody saying they're making like 20, 30, 50, 40, $100,000 selling books, usually, and they're self-published, usually it's because they're running ads. Another thing that over the past year that has worked well for me, and I see works very well for the authors that are doing really well, is that they may be using something like TikTok. Book talk is a thing. Okay, over the last 12 months, I have learned the power of TikTok, and it's a shame that I live in the US. It's a shame that it's being banned. You know, there's some rumors that it may not get banned on January 19, 2025, but if it does, that would be a shame. I've actually began to see people who I know on TikTok, on Book Talk, begin to move to platforms like Instagram, but it's not the same. It really is not, because I have done, not a lot, some book promotion on Instagram, and the results are fairly lackluster. But on TikTok, it's a fair playing ground for everyone, and people can find your books who have never ever heard of you. There's no, this person has more followers, and so their video is gonna go viral. And I've not even had a video necessarily go viral. I think my most watched video on TikTok for my book TikTok is 10,000 views, right? And that has been enough for me to begin to find new readers for my books. So usually they have like a really good TikTok that's doing well for them, right? And then the last but not least thing is that they write a lot of books per year. So it's one of these 4 things: that they have a huge email list, they're running ads, they have like some viral book talk video going on well for them, and they write a lot of books per year. Or they have all 4 of these things, right? I've seen some people play all these 4. I've seen some people just use a few of these. And so anybody that you hear quoting huge numbers, they have one of these things. So sometimes when I see ads and I see people just kind of make videos around, oh, this is you can make all these bucket loads of money from self-publishing books, I cringe a lot, because it's true. Yes, you can make money, but they always don't tell you the full story. So be aware of that. That being said, no, I'm not one of those people that made bucket loads of money, but to the earlier point I was making, I did want to create an income producing asset on the net, right? Because I'm spending money doing some ads, so that takes some of my money, but as a whole, right, I wanted something that was profitable. And yes, thank God this year, my books were profitable, but it's not money that goes into my pocket, right? Some of that money went into reinvesting in the business, because it is a business. If you don't think of this as a business, it's also not going to succeed. And so I reinvested some of that money back into the business, back into myself, right? And so when I talked about that course that I bought in order to take the ads, that money came from my book royalties. I bought that course from my book royalties, which made me really happy, because I didn't have to spend money from my job to get that course. I've also invested some of that money, so taking some of that book royalty and put it in an investment account so that my money can begin to make money for me, if that makes sense. And so these are the ways that I personally I'm thinking about self-publishing. I'm not thinking of it as something, maybe one day it does, right? Of something that absolutely replaces my income right now so I can quit my job. Also, like, I have a lot to say on the whole quit your job and follow your dreams thing. But that's for a whole other video. Let me just be positive in this video. Okay, let's keep moving. So yes, 3 books this year. Yes, investing in courses to help me get ahead. And then also taking some of that money from my book royalties and investing it into the stock market. And I think that that's just such a blessing. One of the things I did this year to expand the income I can make with my books was to turn my books into audiobooks. And I did a video on that earlier this year. I only was able to do 2 of my books this year. I thought I would be able to do 4 of them, but I was able to do 2. I'm so proud of that progress. It's not cheap to make these books. Amazon, somewhere during the course of 2024, though, did come up with a virtual voice within the Amazon bookshelf system, the KDP platform. And so you can go in there, and if you already have a book, you can use their virtual voice, which is like an AI tool, to turn your book into an audiobook. And so I did that for I turned that on for a few of my books, but not all of them. I haven't seen it make a huge difference in my income using virtual voice, but definitely I've seen some income from the audiobooks I made through Amazon ACX, which is a whole different platform. And I'm happy about that. I'm happy I was able to turn those into audiobooks, and I'm happy that I actually own those audios, because the other thing I can do with those audios that I didn't do this year, and maybe God willing next year I'll be able to do, is set up my own store. This is a future plan that I have. So one of the biggest trends within self-publishing now is not just selling on these freely available platforms like Amazon or Gumroad. They're not necessarily free because they take a cut of your money, but these platforms that anybody could start publishing on. There is this huge trend of self-published authors beginning to sell their own books through Shopify. This is one of the biggest opportunities I came across this year, and I've been really keenly interested in it, but a little afraid and apprehensive to take the step. But one of the things I can sell in the Shopify store are my audiobooks. I can sell paperbacks. I don't want to move. So my books, all of my romance books, not my fiction book, my non-fiction books. So my non-fiction books, none of them is in Kindle Unlimited. Kindle Unlimited is Amazon's program where you can put your book and you get paid by the page you read, so by how many pages they read, and they pay you a really, really small amount. And so if, for me, I think my books end up coming to somewhere around 180 KU pages, Kindle Unlimited pages, and that ends up being between 75 to 85 cents per book, which is not a lot, right? If I sell the book at $3.99, which actually sell the ebook at $3.99, I get like $2.75 or so. But if people read through Kindle Unlimited, it's a smaller amount. And so this is why the people that publish a lot of books, there are people that write a book a month. Guys, I told you I wrote 3 books. That was a lot for me because I have so much going on. But there are people that for whom this is like a full-time thing and they're making a lot of money. This is what I was saying, that they write a lot of books a year. And I think some of them may even have people on their teams writing books for them. Some of them may even use AI. I'm about to talk about that, to write books for them. The more books you have within Kindle Unlimited, the more pages people can potentially read, and potentially the more money you can make. And so because of these really low royalties, right, a lot of people are beginning to sell direct to their customers. And so if they already had an email list of, let's say, 20,000 people or even 5,000 people, right, they can tell them that, hey, apart from my book being on Amazon, you can now purchase your book from me directly. Because one of the things I've learned is that when people get invested in your books, they are invested in your books, and anything you put out, they'll buy. Now I have readers like that, like anything I put out, they will purchase, and it's pretty super exciting. It's exciting. That's all I have to say. But if these people are really invested in you, then sometimes there are ways for you to say, hey, instead of purchasing from Amazon, you can purchase from me directly, and I'll throw in these other goodies. And so I've seen people not just sell their books, but they're selling things like mugs and t-shirts and getting people involved in that world. Like if they've created a world that their readers have fallen in love with, right? It's a way for them to like help their readers get merch alongside the books and let them live in that world and get immersed in that world. And so that's something I'm personally looking to toy with. Like I was saying, I'm a little apprehensive about it because it's a completely new venture. With every business venture, you shouldn't have fear stopping you, but you should be skeptical. You should ask questions. You should, wonder if it's going to work, but don't let that keep you from trying, right? I could have said, oh, Amazon is going to pay me low royalty, so I'll never self-publish. But look, I've self-published. I told you I took money from my book royalties to invest in courses, to put in the stock market. So clearly, like, I'm getting paid something, right? And so, but this I see is a way, and the statistics from one of the people that is a leader in this selling direct to your customer space, the statistics are fairly clear that people that are selling direct and doing it the right way and have everything aligned, they are seeing a really big return on investment for setting up these stores. And so it's something that I'm thinking about doing. We'll see in the next updates if I actually do them. So I said I would touch on AI. There is this, just like the hype around, oh, self-publish your book and put it out there and then you'll make bucket loads of money. There's also this narrative around the internet around AI writing your books for you, and you can write so many books in just a couple of days. And I will tell you that for most of the authors that I'm connected with, authors that I interact with, this is not necessarily true. Yes, I will say that I've used AI to help me ideate. I've used AI to help me imagine different scenes in my book, in my books. So far, AI for me has been a great help, but it hasn't been a replacement for me, right? And I'm sure that there are people that maybe train their own AIs, and there are all these things that you could do. But as it stands right now, AI is not just going to pump out books for you. And if it does, let me tell you, it's going to be super generic. Like there was this one time I had the paid version of ChatGPT, and there are also specific AI tools for writers. So ChatGPT is just like the low-hanging fruit, but something like Pseudo-Write is a tool specifically made for writers, specifically made for book writers. And I had signed up for Pseudo-Write, and I had it, I described the story, and it gave me some scenes, which I thought were fairly decent, but they still lacked, to be honest. And I gave it a prompt, it wrote a whole scene for me, and I read the scene and was like, this is good, but it's not the way I want to say it. So I did borrow some elements of what the AI had suggested, but in the final draft of the book, it was different from what the AI had written. So I think that the AI tools that are out there are really good for these reasons, and with maybe some training of AI tools, you could write a whole book just with AI and never edit and never look through. But I think there's always going to be the need for a human touch, even if you do use AI to generate a whole book. So you really have to know what you're doing in order to write a whole book just with AI, and just, you really need to know what you're doing. I want to say that, I get a lot of comments around, thank you for posting this video. I'm self-publishing a book and all that. And one of the things I've realized is people publish, like maybe self-publish 1 or 2 books and then they stop. You're not going to make money that way. There are very few people that make money off of 1 or 2 books. And I remember Joanna Penn, who is one of the people I followed when I was beginning to think about self-publishing. And she's been in the self-publishing space for a really long time. And Joanna was saying that she doesn't know anybody that makes money from 1 or 2 books. Now, as with everything, are there people that publish 1 or 2 books and like do incredibly well? Yes. There are people that publish 1 or 2 books and do incredibly well, but those are usually the exception, not necessarily the norm. There are people also that may have 1 book, but then they turn that, maybe, especially for the nonfiction authors, they turn that into a coaching program or even a conference. There are people that do that, and so from 1 book, they turn it into something else. But nobody makes money from just the 1 book. Usually they're turning the book into something. Usually for fiction authors, it means turning that book into an audiobook. You have a paperback, you have the ebook version. It may include what I was talking about earlier, where selling direct and having merchandise and different accompaniments that go with your books, right? In order for you to make decent money with your books. So don't give up if you've published 1 or 2 books and you are not seeing a return on investment. Another area that I personally have been thinking about is also traditional publishing. I know that traditional publishing sometimes gets a bad rap amongst self-publishers, and for good reason, because if you really think about the lifetime value of your book, sometimes I think you're better off being self-published versus traditionally published. But maybe for some people it's a matter of pride that their book was accepted by a specific publishing house, and that is completely valid. I've toyed with the idea of submitting my books to a traditional publisher. I don't know if I'll actually do it, because again, when I think about the royalty I'll get paid, let's say a really good example of this is that, let's say that you get paid, a lot of the big publishers within romance will pay you somewhere between, at least based on the research I've done, between $4,000 and $6,000 for one book, right? So $4,000 to $6,000 for one book if your book is accepted. And then I think after that you get like 4 to 5% royalty. And so let's say that, you know, for the lifetime of your book, you're not a big name, but you make some money from it. You made that $6,000 up front, 4 to 6,000 up front, but you're going to make very, very little in the tail end. Whereas in my experience with self-published books, I can make that right on one of my books, but it's an income producing asset. And I started with this idea of an income producing asset, right, for a really long time, if I'm also doing a good job of promoting and sharing that book from time to time. And here's the incredible thing that ends up happening. Now I'm about 10 books published. I am 10 books published. Let's say somebody finds my latest book and they really, really enjoy it. It's not just that book. The readers in this genre are and I write sweet Christian romance, such rabid readers. They will read that one book and go through your whole backlist within a month. Like somebody actually told me this recently. She was like, I found your book, I found your books a few months ago and I've read all 10 books. I'm like, wow, okay, like that's amazing, right? And you can have thousands of those people. And so one book is not just one book, right? One book could be somebody reading through 10 of your books, reading through 20 of your books if you have 20 books. So that's how I see it. I don't think traditional versus, I think it depends on where you want to be. It's definitely nice to get paid up front, right? If you get your book accepted, to get paid up front, and then, you know, forget about, you know, the trickle of royalties that may come in. But also with traditional publishing, you may get national exposure in bookstores that you don't always get with independently published books. So it's a toss-up, and you can choose which side you want. I may end up becoming a hybrid author. You never know. So that is my 2024 self-publishing update. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video. If this was helpful, let me know below.